Have you ever seen a weapon that can travel for weeks waiting for orders? Kind of like the missile is a human being sitting somewhere waiting for orders. That is how powerful the Russian Burevestnik missile they launched yesterday is. They're talking about giving Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, right? Well, let them go ahead and give it out. No, Tomahawk missile system is a cruise missile, and the new Russian Burevestnik missile is also a cruise missile. Let me give you a little history about this missile. This missile, the Russians started producing it back in 2001 after America decided to withdraw from the ABM treaty. ABM stands for Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. So back in the 1970s, America and the Soviet Union signed a treaty to reduce the production of intercontinental ballistic missile because this intercontinental ballistic missile obviously can carry nuclear warheads. The Russians intercontinental ballistic missile obviously can reach America, and Americans own to can reach Russia. So there was a treaty to reduce the production of these weapons because it was becoming more dangerous. You know, all intercontinental ballistic missiles are ICBMs, right? Yes, so it is very, very dangerous. So after the collapse of the USSR, America took advantage of this. They thought Russia was becoming more weak, so they decided to withdraw from the treaty and started producing more ICBMs, right? Intercontinental ballistic missiles, EBM. So thinking that they were ahead of the Russians, but little did they know that the Russians were far ahead of them. Now, this is one of the first missile that is not an ICBM, but can reach the United States. This missile is kind of like an intercontinental ballistic missile, but it is not. This makes it confusing more because intercontinental ballistic missile have the capability to travel this far, but this is not an intercontinental ballistic missile, yet it can reach the United States. According to experts, if there is need for this weapon to travel around the globe to hit a target, it can travel around the globe to hit a target. What makes it more dangerous is the range in which it can travel. This makes it more dangerous. It can travel at a very low altitude, invading enemy radars. You know, when missiles travel at a very low altitude, it's very difficult for radars to detect it. It can travel in between 850 to 1,300 kilometers per hour. Now, during the test flight, this missile was in mid-flight for about 15 hours and covered a distance of more than 14,000 kilometers. Most powerful weapons like this communicate with satellite, but this particular weapon can jam satellite and work without satellite. That actually surprised me personally. Now, for example, the American HIMARS is a precision missile system which communicates with satellite. It communicates using GPS. The Russians also have their own version called GLONASS. That is their own equivalent of GPS, GLONASS, right? So, for example, the Iskander ballistic missile launcher is a precision missile system which communicates with satellite, right? But this particular missile is completely different. It can work without satellite, and it also have the ability to even jam satellite, making it more dangerous. So in war, if this missile is able to jam satellite, it makes all American precision missile systems absolutely useless, because without satellite, the likes of HIMARS and other precision missile systems are not going to work. So on the other hand, this missile is a missile. At the same time, it is kind of like the Russian S-550. So, you know, the Russian S-550 is basically designed to shoot down American satellite. But this particular missile is not meant to shoot down the satellite, but it can jam it, making it quite confusing at the same time, quite surprising. For more powerful weapons update like this, hit on the like button, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Now, the best or perfect example to describe this particular missile is nuclear-powered submarines. You know, nuclear-powered submarines can be in enemy waters for months or even possible years without refueling. That is exactly how this particular weapon is, because it is nuclear-powered, making the range unlimited. It can travel basically anywhere, anytime, without any refueling. That is how this missile is. Now, according to Vladimir Putin, this particular missile can invade enemy radars and enemy air defense systems. According to him, it is almost impossible to shoot down this particular weapon. One American former general warned America about this missile about 2 years ago. after watching the video, what shocked me was how accurate this particular general was concerning this missile, even before the launching, before the world got to know about this missile. This general knew about it even 2 years ago. By the way, let's watch him.
An exotic weapon. You know, you don't usually use nuclear power to provide thrust for propulsion for weapon systems. What this will give Russia capacity for is to take a low-yielding, potentially nuclear weapon, and then use it and to have it travel a greater distance, tens of thousands of miles, let's say, right? Where they're testing it. This Burevestnik missile is normally a conventional cruise missile that's used, let's say, inter-theater. This provides a strategic view, though. Let's say they have this in the Arctic where they're testing it right now. They could easily launch this missile from that platform and hit targets in the United States, not using ICBMs. ICBMs are intercontinental. They require space programs. They go out in outer space. They're a much more different weapon system.
What shocked me personally is how accurate he was about 2 years ago. He's 100% right. Whatever he said in the video is 100% accurate, because you need intercontinental ballistic missiles to travel that long range between the United States to Russia. You need intercontinental ballistic missiles. And I've already explained this. Intercontinental ballistic missiles, you need space program. There is a whole lot of things involved before you can use intercontinental ballistic missiles. But this particular missile makes all this satellite and whatever absolutely useless. It can work on its own without any satellite, which makes it a bit confusing. There's a bit similarities between the Burevestnik cruise missile and Orishnik and hypersonic missiles. And I've observed this pattern. In recent days, all the missiles that the Russians are launching, it can maneuver mid-flight. That is one thing about this particular missile. It can maneuver mid-flight, meaning in mid-flight, this particular missile can change course. So instead of the missile going straight, it can go corners, making shooting it down very difficult. This is not new. In recent days, when you look at the Russian Gerard 2, Gerard 3 drone, especially the Gerard 3 drone, can maneuver mid-flight, making it shooting down very difficult. And we all know hypersonic missiles, right? Obviously, hypersonic missile, one of the components of hypersonic missile is it can maneuver mid-flight. And recently, the Orishnik missile also the same thing. So this is not different from the other missiles that the Russians launched in recent days. So once again, the launch of this Burevestnik missile, confirms that Russia is not lacking behind. So all these talks in the media about Russia is lacking behind in terms of technology. This particular missile launch make that particular statement absolutely nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. Currently, the Russians have a lot of missiles that even the West cannot compete with. By the way, this missile started back in the Soviet era. So during the era of the arms race between the United States and the Russians, that was when the Soviet Union started the production, or the blueprint, let me not say the production, the blueprint was started back then. So after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Putin was not interested in building weapons or ending up in another arms race with the United States. One of the main reasons why the Soviet Union struggled financially was because of this arms race with the United States. So Putin was never interested in this. But the problem was all the treaty that the Soviet Union or Russia signed with the United States started violating all the treaties. They started pulling out of the treaties. NATO started expanding to Russian borders. And that was when it dawned on Putin that, look, we have to do something about this, because these guys are not ready. They don't want peace. They continue to produce more and more powerful weapons. So Putin also decided to invest a lot in his military. He decided to go ahead and produce weapons. And today, this is the result that we are seeing, the Burevestnik missile. Well, what do you think about this Burevestnik missile? Let me know down in the comment section. Your opinion is very, very important to me. Thank you very much for your endless support. Shalom. See you guys in the next episode.